I see a lot of people are starting to trickle in. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to see all of you again. I hope you've had a wonderful time with all of our sessions across Nest level. As you know, we have a lot of exciting sessions that's lined up today that's around digital marketing, sales, and e-commerce. But before we get started, always as usual, we're reminding you to download the VFest app on your mobile phone, which allows you to join sessions much easier, especially if you're going to join us tomorrow and on Thursday as well. With that, we're going to chill for a few minutes before this session gets started with Krystal. And of course, to let you watch our video for exciting reminders before we begin this session shortly. Enjoy. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I hope that this is not the first session that you're joining us. I hope it's hopefully the fifth or your sixth, and that you've been enjoying all the sessions in Nest Level. I'm glad to be back here again to be a host for another session, and this personally is one of my favorite and most excited for, and it is how Nestlé is defining the metaverse. So as you know, I'm May, and before we get started, I just have some house rules that we should go through to make sure that the session today will flow smoothly. So keep an eye on the chat box as usual to make sure not to flood it with spam so you can catch important announcement links and how you can engage with us via Slido. If you have any questions for Krystal during her session, do insert them on slido.com. And you may see the chat box for the code to ensure that you're inserting the questions in the right Slido. And apart from that, have your mobile phones ready so you can scan QR codes that might come up during the session to see career opportunities that are available in the Nestlé markets and around the globe. Great, so I'm going to get started. In a minute, you'll see Krystal popping up on the screen. But before I get there, let me introduce Krystal really quickly. So Krystal is he's the Global Chief Innovation Officer of GroupM and Choreograph. And Krystal has been a GroupM veteran for more than 7 years, and it's a member of GroupM's global leadership team. One of Adweek's 50 most indispensable executive medias in marketing and tech, Krystal masterfully uses software as a catalyst to drive innovation across the business. I'm really excited for her session as she's going to demystify the metaverse and explore new technologies, implications, and considerations as we move closer to a Web 3.0 world with Krystal. With that, Krystal, take it away.
Hi, thank you, May, and I'm really excited to be here, everyone. So I'm going to take you through this presentation that we worked on with Nestlé. Nestlé is one of our biggest partners globally, and we get to help them with media, marketing, advertising, you name it, all of the things. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about demystifying the metaverse. When we start with these new phases of technology, oh, sorry, the sun is literally rising behind me. When we start with these new phases of technology, and when we start to enter into new realms, I always like to start by taking a step back before we take that step forward so that we can really understand exactly what we're talking about and the implications. So before we go into the metaverse and what it is and what Web 3.0 is, I just want to remind everyone here, or teach you all, that technology is continuing to advance. This moment in time that we're in today didn't just happen. It's been actually taking place for quite a long time. A lot of you may know about augmented or virtual reality. Augmented reality is the ability to do like a Snapchat filter, for example, or an Instagram filter, something that overlays and augments your view through a camera or through a lens. Virtual reality is really the ability to enter into a virtual world digitally. Blockchain, we're going to spend time talking about later today, so I won't touch on it too much right now. The third technology that we mentioned is artificial intelligence or machine learning. This is really around being able to process massive amounts of data, find patterns in that data, and then use that to create predictions, to automate processes, to get smarter. And finally, graphic processing. This one may seem odd compared to the other three, but actually, if you think about how much graphic processing has advanced, we used to need video game consoles to be able to have these high impact moments in virtual reality. Today, our computers, even our cell phones, have such powerful graphic processing capabilities that it's really allowed for the democratization of capabilities. These 4 pieces of technology have been some of the key drivers that have led us into this world of the metaverse. And you all may have heard various definitions of the metaverse. None of these are wrong. I pulled all of these from different conversations. Everyone's trying to define it. And, you know, it's complicated. But with Nestlé, we really wanted to be able to have a very simple definition that could help us focus our efforts and really rally behind a common mission and goal. So for us, we've defined the metaverse as a virtual environment that supports engagements and experiences comparable to the real world. So shopping, hanging out with your friends, socializing, playing games, that exists in multiple iterations. This is a really important one. Some people think about the metaverse and talk about the metaverse as sort of the next evolution of the internet where everything's interconnected. That's a long-term vision. It's not a reality of where we are today, and it's probably not a reality of where we'll be in the next decade. So we do believe, similarly to when you go to LinkedIn for networking with your community of colleagues versus when you go to Instagram to network with your friends, there will be multiple iterations of the metaverse. And most importantly, it's an integral part of life for the Gen Z digital first consumer today. And that one is really important because as marketers, understanding how the next generation of consumers is engaging with content is extremely critical to figure out how we have to show up and the ways we can be authentic in these ecosystems. So That's usually where everyone stops and goes, what do you mean? The metaverse just popped up as a phrase. How could it be prevalent today? And really the first wave of the metaverse that you and I probably all know, is the gaming ecosystem. I love to use Roblox as an example. The last statistics I saw were that there are 53 million global daily users on Roblox, and each of those users spends about 2.5 hours a day inside of that ecosystem. That is how they are engaging with their friends virtually. That's how they're playing games. That's how they're hanging out. There are currencies inside of Roblox. There's something called Robux. And there are a lot of these different platforms like this, Roblox, Fortnite. There are a whole bunch of different gaming ecosystems that exist today. What's really important though about these gaming ecosystems, one is again, that immersive experience and how consumers are hanging out and spending so much time in them. But also the fact that they operate very similarly to how platforms operate today. So I mentioned that they have their own currency, for example. If you've ever spent money on Roblox, if you have children, or if you yourself have done that, you'll know that you give your credit card information, Roblox becomes Robux, and you can use those Robux to buy cool products, to update your avatars, to really bring out your level of individuality. However, these companies, like the Robloxes, they are public companies or privately owned companies, and they operate very similarly to how platforms operate, in that the revenue goes to the company. This is really important, and we'll unpack that more later, but I want you to remember that in today's version of the metaverse, we are thinking about platforms and how they exist today. So for an advertiser, we're very comfortable with platforms. It's basically a big part of our strategy. And I just wanted to make that point very clear here. Now, as I mentioned, I like to go into history before I go into the future. So for 1 minute, I'm just going to take a step back and talk about the evolution of the internet, because the evolution of the web is actually fueling the potential of the metaverse. So where it is a platform model today, there's a strong hypothesis to believe that this will evolve. And that's really important to unpack. So what do I mean? First of all, I don't know how old all of you are. I definitely remember sitting in my parents' basement in the 1990s with a startup modem going that calling to get onto the internet. And I remember those old school days of the internet. You went to a website, you could read the website, and that was about it. So that was the first iteration of the web. And that was the information economy, as we called it. It was really a one-directional flow of information where consumers could go and they could read. It was what we call the information economy. In the late 1990s, the internet evolved from a lot of those technologies that I mentioned at the beginning even, but something shifted and we were able to actually ask the internet questions and get answers back. So you may remember search platforms like Ask Jeeves. Some of you may have heard of a little thing called Google search, but these platforms revolutionized how we thought about the internet and how the internet operated. And all of a sudden it shifted from a one-directional flow of information to consumers actually being able to engage back with the internet, to like things, to share things. However, when you think about the internet today, if you want to upload a photo onto the internet, you are probably using a platform, whether it's Google or WeChat or some other form of a platform anywhere. And that's because the internet is largely today powered by a set of big companies who focus on connecting consumers to information. That platform model is incredibly important for advertisers and for digital marketers. It's, when we think about how we reach consumers, we think about which consumers we can reach on Facebook or on Meta. We think about which consumers we can reach on WeChat, on Baidu. We think about the consumers we can reach on Amazon. All of these are platforms. However, we are starting to see the glimmer of what Web 3.0 could mean. And I say it like that because though there are some utilizations of these technologies, at best, the internet's at like Web 2.1, 2.2. It's still going to be a long transformation process Doesn't mean we need to not be paying attention to it today. We absolutely should be paying attention to it today, but it's evolving. What's really important about the goal of Web 3.0 is that in its simplest form, instead of having to go to a platform to be able to upload a photo to share with my friends, I should be able to just upload the photo onto the internet. To power that, there's some type of tokenization that needs to be involved. We need to decentralize how consumers can engage and bring digital assets onto the internet. And that is the world of Web 3.0. So it's no longer the ability to just read and write and like something, but it's actually the ability to execute. It's the ability for ownership on the internet. And that's really transformative. And it's very transformative specifically for brands as they start to think about how they engage with consumers and the technologies they may want to use to engage with those consumers. So just to recap on Web 3.0, it's a movement. It is not a moment in time. We are not there yet, but it is the decentralization of digital assets. And it is where ownership will sit with the individual, not necessarily with a company. And that's really important. So now, there are a couple of core pieces of technology that are powering the movement towards Web 3.0. The first one is blockchain. This is not a blockchain presentation, and I am not a blockchain expert, so I'm going to keep this at a very high level. But blockchain has been around, actually, funnily enough, since the 1990s. That was when the first thesis came out. So it's not necessarily net new technology. And the thesis behind blockchain was, today, usually data lives centrally inside of a business, for each of you inside of your homes or inside of your personal sort of management of your assets. You control, as a company, what information you put on the cloud or on your server. You control who has permission to that information. You control edits, you control updating. It's all centralized, a centralized database structure. Blockchain is the notion of a decentralized database structure. So what that means is that there is a transparent ledger and everyone has access for that specific blockchain who's using that blockchain to the information that's uploaded. It's really important because that decentralized database approach allows that shift from platforms, which are very centralized, into decentralized ownership. As I mentioned, blockchain isn't a net new concept, but it took until 2008 to see the first real use case that blockchain could support, which was cryptocurrency. So many of you, I would assume almost all of you, have heard of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency. The reason why blockchain was actually really great for supporting cryptocurrencies is because when you think about the banking market, banks' core value proposition, or one of their core value propositions, is managing the ledger. But in a decentralized database structure, the ledger manages itself, meaning that you could have alternative currencies. And we saw Bitcoin start in 2008 and really pick up steam in the back half of last decade. Now, for some of you, you might be thinking, I know I am, well, the cryptocurrency's all crashed. So what does that mean? And actually, I think that's a pretty interesting sign. When we think about the global economy right now, when we think about some of the challenges we're facing, words that are getting thrown around like recession and all of these things, on our standard stock markets, we're seeing stocks be more cautious. We're not seeing the great increase and growth right now. We are seeing it sort of stabilize. The fact that cryptocurrency is behaving quite similarly to how we would expect regular currency to behave, for me, is a key indicator that it is here to stay and that it is so integrated with society at this point that it is behaving very similarly to how we would expect society to behave or other currencies to behave. The final piece I want to talk about is NFTs, and we're going to go more into this later, but NFTs are even an evolution beyond cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency is really a unique identifier tied to a value. As we get into NFTs, we're adding a digital asset to it. It could be a photo, it could be a piece of art, it could be a piece of music, but all of a sudden you're able to attach a digital asset to a token to be able to drive ownership. And that's been a really interesting phenomenon that's taken place. I'm going to spend more time going through NFTs in a minute, but what NFTs really do allow you to do is start to rethink about the way your brand engages with consumers and to shift from membership to ownership. So I talked a lot about Roblox and Fortnite at the beginning, but now we're starting to get into, as we think about blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, how it all comes together for a Web 3.0 metaverse, which we've seen in platforms like Decentraland and Sandbox. These platforms do not have the same scale as the these decentralized metaverses do not have the same scale today as platforms do, like a Roblox or a Fortnite, but they flip the model. They are really about ownership at an individual level. And I think that's a really fascinating evolution that we're going to continue to pay attention to. Now, if you've been reading in the trade press, there are definitely skeptics to NFTs, and there's a lot of hype, but there's a lot of high potential. Where NFTs really start to shine is when you start to focus on that shift from driving to community and ownership. I talked about this a bit. When you think of membership companies, when you think of going to the gym, for example, or a members only club, if you pay for that, you pay for that, you pay for that, you pay for that. And then when you stop paying for that, it goes back to whoever owns it and they get to sell your membership to someone else. In the world of NFTs, the consumers become owners. It's almost like a shareholder in a company. And that shift from membership to ownership makes them invested in the value of the community, makes them invested in the incremental benefits that come from consumers. So it's really fascinating from that perspective. It also creates utility in both the physical and virtual worlds. I think the best examples, some of the best examples of NFTs that we've seen to date, a consumer is not just only getting maybe that digital asset, but they're also starting to get something physical, a discount to buying their cereal, or a sneak peek at swag or clothing. These are really valuable from both sides. The third is creating digital identity and digital assets. This one, I don't think really that the internet or the society is ready yet for everyone at mass scale to be collecting NFTs simply to collect them. However, in the future, it's going to play an increasingly bigger role in terms of virtual identity. And it's going to be powering the new age of collectibles and responsibility, which I think is really fascinating. Now, I wanted to give a call out to Nestlé because some of you may think Nestlé, big CPG brand, how are they playing in this space? But part of innovation is really going out and starting to test these technologies. So I was very proud to see in March of this year, the Nestlé team out of Dubai, or specifically the Tricks team out of Dubai, launch an NFT with the goal of actually all of the NFT sales contributed to charity, the Emirates Red Crescent. It was really great for Nestlé to be relevant in this space and starting to test this technology because it allowed Nestlé to understand how consumers engaged, what the value proposition was, how they could start to grow a strategy, and they were able to do it in a testing market. So it was a really, I think, important moment, and I just want to give Nestlé recognition for going out there and testing this capability in such a way, and doing it with the purpose of contributing back to charity. Now, all of this may seem like it came out of nowhere. I assume a lot of you are probably part of a younger generation because it's all about next gen, leveling up. But I think especially for my peer set, it's like, whoa, where did this come from? All of a sudden this showed up in the press like 6 months ago. And what I want to say is that this has actually been going on since the 80s. This has followed a long line of tech innovation. And the global pandemic really accelerated the need for a lot of this. So where we are today versus where we're going in the future is really important, but this is not a fad. This is not a moment in time. Some of these things may be buzzwords, but the utilities of these technologies are what we as marketers are paying attention to. Not so much the NFT launches that are happening today, but how is the notion of an NFT going to help transform our brand in the future? Now, the opportunities for Nestlé in terms of innovation, leveraging these technologies, are truly endless. Some of the ones that really excite me, for example, are storytelling and brand building first and foremost. I often make the joke that when you think about e-com platforms, for example, they're pretty two-dimensional. They're very static. You go, you click, you put in the cart, you go. If you grew up only knowing Roblox, only knowing Fortnite, only knowing Decentraland, and then all of a sudden you turn 18, you get a hold of your parents' credit card, you go shopping for the first time, those experiences don't match up. You're expecting to be able to go onto a website and see how that shirt looks on you through your avatar. And today, you know, I would say a lot of brands are still floating in Web 2.0 in terms of how they storytell and brand build virtually and digitally. This is a really big area of focus for Nestlé in the future, is how do we use these technologies to reimagine our storytelling, to reimagine how we engage with consumers, and to do so in an authentic way that provides them with value. I touched on virtual retail a little bit there. I want to just like thread that point a little bit more. We can define all of the rules outside of time using these technologies. There is no gravity. There is no sort of Newton's law of physics. We can have so much fun with it. I don't want to see us create, a shopping experience that looks just like if I went to a shopping plaza. We need to be imaginative, but we can really redefine what virtual retail looks like, which is so exciting. The third one I'll talk about is emerging ad units. Obviously, this is around digital transformation. I think many of us are probably a little bit exhausted with the Web 2.0 world. So for example, if you left a product in a shopping cart and that product just follows you around all the time across the internet, and you're like, I didn't want it. I changed my mind. Why is it still harassing me? Banner ads exist today. Digital ads, these 360s by 290s and all these different ad units, they exist today. As we go into the metaverse, as we go into these immersive experiences, we have the ability to reimagine ad units. I love the idea of walking through the metaverse and seeing different types of cars parked in a parking lot based on your preference as a consumer. I love the idea of sort of organically brands just showing up in a way that makes sense and that doesn't feel like an advertisement anymore, but that feels like it's just an immersive part of the experience. These are just a couple. I always joke here that I'm not a creative, I'm a data nerd. So really this is about as deep as I go into the depths of my creativity, but a lot of you who are far more creative than me can really help imagine what we can do next to really transform Nestlé in terms of how they storytell with these endless possibilities that have popped up. Now, there are a lot of reasons Nestlé is embracing the metaverse, and I talked about them. Limitless opportunity to build creative and visionary experiences. We see a diverse and highly loyal audience drawn to authenticity in this space. Consumers that have bought Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs, they're in it. They are loyal. That is an investment in the future and they believe in it. Again, I mentioned 53 million daily unique users. That means people coming back every day using Roblox for 2.6 hours a day. They're loyal. They're in those platforms. It is a great place to be an authentic version of yourself as a brand to be able to engage. We also see new revenue streams. We've seen brands launch NFTs. Obviously, Nestlé launched an NFT specifically to give back to charity, and I love that. There are brands that are launching NFTs as almost new company lines. They're using NFTs to generate revenue, and you're seeing that, and you're seeing the monetization come in. And finally, championing sustainable consumption. This one's really important. Historically, to do an activation, it needed to be physical. You needed to go to a location, you needed to fly in all this material, you need to set up billboards. In this world, you can actually build a really phenomenal experience without needing to pull down all those raw supplies, to be much more sustainable in your approach. And I think that's so awesome as we think about the internet and what's possible. Now, you may be wondering why Nestlé hasn't gone 100% all in, everything is the metaverse today. And there are a lot of reasons why we are being cautious as well. It is an emerging area, and we need to build a metaverse for good. I often talk about the mistakes we made in a Web 2.0 world. I want to talk about privacy for a second. Those of you who are paying attention may have seen there are different privacy regulations popping up in different markets. GDPR, which was the privacy regulation that took place in Europe, was one of the most prevalent ones, but it's everywhere. It's in, Thailand, in India, in the US, in Brazil, across Europe, in China. We really stretched the brink of what was possible in a Web 2.0 world without necessarily thinking about what was best for the consumer. And one of the most exciting opportunities that we have as Nestlé sitting here is we have a moment to take those learnings from our broader industry and bring them into our expectations and the world we want to build as we move into the metaverse and as we move into Web 3.0. Now, brand safety is a big issue for brands. Brand safety and brand suitability. So this is around where you want your messages to run, what you want to be seen sponsoring and supporting. And we know that today, a lot of these platforms still have challenges. I don't know if all of you have seen it, but for example, Meta, they have a Horizon metaverse. And inside of that, there was an issue with women getting groped. It was a challenge. Now, Meta responded really quickly, and they created this personal space bubble. So now you can go in and you can kind of change your settings so that only your friends can come into your personal space. And if you don't know someone and they try to come into your personal space, they lose their hands. It's simple, but it's innovative, and it was a fast response. We need to continue to hold our platform partners accountable. We need to continue as we go into this next phase of developing the web to take our learnings and ensure that we are incentivizing better social behaviors. I talk about consumer privacy and security a little bit. I think there's a misconception that because the blockchain is immutable, because the blockchain, it can't be edited, that it's fully safe. We forget that the applications that hang off the blockchain still have vulnerabilities. We've seen that with so many people getting their NFTs stolen, for example, cryptocurrency getting stolen. It's something that we're still working towards as an industry, and we still need to make sure that we're paying attention to. Third one's really important for me. Embedding diversity and inclusion and responsibility in general. I keep going back to the Twix NFT. I love it because there was a responsibility angle to it. We need to make sure, especially brands have a lot of power to influence. And we need to make sure that we're supporting all different types of platforms, all different types of creators, that we're using these technologies to give people opportunities that they have never had before. If you can go to Bali and put on your headset and then go to Bali, that's one thing. If you might have grown up with less, have less resource, how can we use these technologies to give people opportunities that they've never had before, to teach people, to help educate them, to help up-level them? A big part of what I love about this Next Level program is that it's access for anyone who wants to join to learn. How do we make sure that's a core part of how we think about the metaverse moving forward? The final piece I want to talk about is crypto sustainability, because as much as we love Web 3.0 technologies like blockchain and crypto, there's still a long way to go in terms of making sure it's sustainable. And that's the truth with most technologies. But one statistic I love to leave everyone with is mining one Bitcoin transaction is the equivalent to powering a home in the United States for about 6 weeks. That is a massive amount of energy consumption for one Bitcoin transaction. Now, for my Web 3.0 nerds, some of you may have seen that this week Ethereum shifted from proof of work to proof of stake, and that we've seen a 99.9 some odd % decrease in terms of energy consumption coming out of Ethereum, that is massive. And we will continue to follow Ethereum and other blockchains so that when we work with them, we're ensuring that we are choosing the most environmentally conscious solutions. This is an evolution. It's not going to be perfect on day one, but we need to just go in fully aware that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. There's also volatility with crypto in general because it's unregulated, and thinking about that impact of that for consumers is really important. Now, with all of that, that is sort of my big picture. This is the future of the web. This is how we're thinking about it. Here are some of the building blocks that we need to start to think about as brands. And I've seen a ton of questions come through. So I'm gonna ask my colleague or my friend May here to join us back, and we will go into questions.
Thank you, Krystal. That's been really, really interesting. And we do have so many questions, to be honest with you. We'll try to get through as many as possible because we don't have much time. So just jump right into it. So the first one here is that, how do you think the Metaverse, Web 3.0 and virtual reality will shape the fast-moving consumer goods, consumer trends moving forward?
Oof, that's a good question. And that's a tough question too. I think that, you know, in a couple of different ways. I think that some fast moving consumer goods, they're just core to us. Like how you choose toilet paper, for example, is how you choose toilet paper. But I think when we start to think about fast moving consumer goods like beauty products, like food products, things of that nature, the metaverse, Web 3.0, virtual reality, there are going to be new ways to bring knowledge of those products to consumers, number one. Number two, R&D, and actually being able to test if consumers are interested in these products. The types of consumers that are interested in these products will be really interesting. And third, it's that data feedback loop. So I think for brands, being able to just see and understand what consumers are looking for and the trends that are popping up to be able to respond to them quickly will be really interesting.
All right, the next one. What sort of roles and skill sets do marketeers and their companies need in order to be ready for the metaverse technologies?
It's a great question. First and foremost, we need very curious individuals. Like if nothing else, curiosity. Be willing to put on an Oculus headset. Be willing to read the press. Be willing to go play in Roblox. I think there are different types of skills depending on where within this sort of metaverse technology space you want to live. 3D designers, people who are able to actually play on the Unruly engine or the Unreal engine, like these 3D virtual experiences and environments, really important. Really important. Also, people that understand the internet. I keep going back to data. Data people are really important too. But I would say stay curious, stay up to speed on those emerging technologies. Those engines are going to be a big part of our future and how we bring Web 3.0 technologies to bear. So NVIDIA, Epic Games and their engine, there's a whole bunch of different engines. A lot of them are open source too. You can just go in and play. Learning that technology is going to be really important for the future.
I think it's that, spirit of being experimental as well is really important, right? Along with curiosity. You should want to experiment to see where you can go with like emerging technologies like the metaverse. Okay.
I love that.
I think this question is also going to be quite fun for you to answer. How can brands ensure they stand out in the metaverse? What experiences should they prioritize? I know you talked a lot about like retail experiences. I guess you can give your insight here and what you think other areas that we can expand into for brands.
It's such a good question. I probably said that about every question. These are all great questions. I should start by saying.
I agree.
But right. I think I'm going to flip it a little bit. What brands need to ensure is that they're being authentic to their brand. So one of my favorite activations actually is Wendy's. Wendy's is a fast food company. Wendy has shown up all over Twitch. She is an avatar that plays different games. Yeah, it's like really funny. And it's very authentic to sort of the quirky behavior of Wendy's.
Yeah.
She shows up in all these different gaming experiences. She has her own channel on Twitch. She's like out there doing things. It's very authentic. Consumers are skeptical. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, even more skeptical than me, who sits in a millennial space. And I thought I was the most skeptical of the consumer sets. So what brands need to not do is something that is not authentic to them, because that's where you start to risk negative backlash. And that's actually even more important. It's not so much prioritizing what you should do, but also knowing what you should not do. And it's understanding your risk appetite. So like, does anyone really want to see a bank show up in the middle of like a Roblox activation? Maybe not. Nike being there, that was great. Like Adidas being in Web 3.0 made a lot of sense. So it's really around being true to who you are as a brand, understanding your brand and where it can show up, but also, pushing the boundaries like Wendy's did, for example.
I like that. I'm going to check that out. I didn't know that like Wendy's was like into Twitch and stuff. We've got one more. Oh,
it's super cool. Sorry, I was just going to say it's super cool.
It's okay. We have time for one more question, and I think I really like this one. How would media trends like short form content and vertical first content integrate into the metaverse? And I guess this is around like output of content. We know that, previously, horizontal content was a big thing because of YouTube, and then you saw TikTok taking over. How do you see that being into the metaverse?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Because I was trying to read it and I didn't see it on here. Just ask me one more time.
Okay.
I just want to make sure.
How would media trends like short form content and vertical first content integrate with the metaverse?
It's a great question. So I'm going to, again, as I do cheekily, flip that a little bit. Influencers in general, we talk about what's more important right now, influencers or the metaverse. And I'd argue that the metaverse is something to pay attention to and something to be building towards. Influencers here right now. I guarantee every one of you has influencers you follow and that you love. Short form content, the ability to get these bite-sized snacks and these bite-sized information is incredible. Did you know that 40% of Gen Z consumers today are starting to search via TikTok instead of Google search? It has just changed the way we think about experiences and who we trust to get information from. So for me, I don't know exactly how it will integrate yet. You could almost see a world where you're walking through a metaverse and these videos start to pop up and engage. But really what I want you to take away from that, and what's really important, is like the influencer stage is here now. We are building towards the metaverse and towards Web 3.0. So it'll be really important to take the learnings, to take the authenticity. But I could also see a world where those influencers start to show up in the metaverse as well.
That's so interesting. And I do agree with you. I think like there was a thing that people said they don't know how to Google, but they definitely know how to search on TikTok.
Wild.
Okay, that's all the time we have. But thank you so much, Krystal, for this really insightful presentation. And thank you for taking as many questions that you possibly could. We are going to jump to the next session. We're all in a tight time schedule at the moment. Next session to catch is Adam Simon's session. If you guys have any other questions for Krystal, I'm sure you can connect with her on LinkedIn. She'll be happy to answer or catch her at any other webinars that you have. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next session, and I hope you found this as insightful as possible. And thank you for your questions, and we hope you enjoyed this.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, everyone.